You know, you got a new player like Ty Harris that a lot of fans possibly want to see, and she's hurt. That's very interesting to see. Now, somebody said Hornthal is my least favorite thing. Honestly, I don't even care for a preseason game. Freaking sucks, but I completely understand the caution and I respect it and looking out for the health of our players. Somebody says this is just a precautionary because it's preseason, right?
That reaction right there tells you everything you need to know about Indiana Fever fans right now. The preseason hasn't even started, and already we're seeing injury reports that are triggering genuine panic. And honestly, can you blame them? After what happened last season with Caitlin Clark's ankle situation, the trust between this fan base and the front office is completely shattered.
Right? Yeah, I believe that is the case. Somebody said, oh my Lord, whoa, we're really back. I'm not even having fun anymore. Like, what the F? The season hasn't even started yet, and you got to be kidding me. Well, something that we got to realize, y'all, is that a lot of this stuff is precautionary. Somebody said hospital Indiana Fever is back. I hope not. I truly hope that is not the case for the team, man.
So here's what we're dealing with. Aaliyah Boston is listed as out with a lower leg injury. Lexi Hall is sidelined with a hamstring issue. Temi Fagbenley still doesn't have her visa cleared. And Ty Harris is out with a knee injury. That's 4 players unavailable for a preseason exhibition game against the New York Liberty. Now the question becomes, is this legitimate injury management, or are we watching the same dysfunction from last year play out all over again?
Letting us know exactly what all of this means, man. Let me get Chloe Peterson pulled up here. So Chloe Peterson said, all of these are precautionary, I'm told. It is part of AB and Harris' return to play regime after injury. And Hall is dealing with some tightness that Indiana didn't want to risk in the preseason. If it was a regular season game, they will be playing.
And this is where it gets interesting. Chloe Peterson, who covers the team closely, immediately jumped in with clarification. She reported that all of these are precautionary measures. Ty Harris is following a return-to-play protocol after her injury, and Lexi Hall is dealing with some tightness that the team doesn't want to risk in a meaningless preseason game. According to Peterson's sources, if this was a regular season matchup, these players would be suiting up.
An update as to what is happening with the team. Let's see if she got in the comments section. Somebody said, okay, that makes sense. Let me see here. Thanks, Chloe. Thank you. So Cunningham. So, yeah, I think this was last year. See, I knew Lexi Hall had a hamstring injury last year, man. Now, Sophie was not on the list. So we possibly will be seeing Sophie McDonald.
But here's the problem the Fever created for themselves. The credibility gap is massive. Fans spent 4 months last season being told Caitlin Clark was day-to-day with an ankle injury. Day-to-day from July through October. That's not day-to-day. That's season-long management being disguised as temporary setbacks. And when you burn your fan base like that, when you lose their trust by consistently misleading them about player health, you don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore.
Handles the injury report. White could have said yesterday at presser that we're players who wouldn't play as a precaution. Somebody said, I'm curious who's going to play as our post. I guess Billings, since both Boston and Dantes are not there. I think KK could play the spot sometimes, but nobody is she's matchup for Jones. Well, I doubt if Jones didn't play for a very long time. Somebody said fans don't believe anything the Fever coaching staff.
Now let's talk about what actually happened yesterday, because this is where the communication breakdown becomes obvious. The Fever held a press conference. Stephanie White was there. They had the perfect opportunity to address the injury situation proactively, to get ahead of the story and explain their cautious approach to preseason. Instead, they said nothing. And then hours later, they drop an injury report that lists 4 players as unavailable. No context, no explanation, just a list of names and vague injury descriptions.
I agree with the fan that stated that they could have very much told us this in a press conference yesterday. Instead of them now telling us this, all of this stuff could have been avoided. I mean, we have serious war rooms from last year, front office, lying about the Caitlin Clark injury. I mean, they literally had us carrying a donkey from damn me July to October, bro. That's how bad it was. That's like 4 months of us.
Think about this from a fan perspective. You've been waiting months for basketball to return. You're excited about the new coaching staff, the roster additions, the chance to see this team compete at a higher level. And the very first piece of news you get is an injury report that looks eerily similar to the chaos of last season. Of course, people are going to panic. Of course, they're going to assume the worst. The Fever trained them to expect dysfunction.
These are New York, I believe. There is Aaliyah Boston. Aaliyah Boston looked like she lost some weight. They'll go Caitlin Clark. Now, something that I thought we was going to hear, at least by now, is Caitlin Clark signature shoes dropping. Now, we didn't hear anything about Caitlin Clark's shoes dropping yet. So that's very interesting to me. Like KK's there. Leah Boston's still going. Sophie Cunningham's there. Monique Billings.
Let's break down each situation individually, because the details actually matter here. Start with Aaliyah Boston. She's been at practice, we've seen footage of her shooting, working out, looking completely healthy. So when the injury report lists her as out with a lower leg injury, what are fans supposed to think? Either she got hurt very recently, or the team is being overly cautious with their franchise cornerstone. Given that it's preseason and Boston is coming off playing overseas, the cautious approach makes sense. But again, explain that to your fans instead of letting them spiral.
You can have as many as you want. You can take them all. Oh, one's already ready for you. Yeah, you gotta watch some games this season so you can become an Indiana fan. Thank you. Oh, you feel me with Indiana winning? Yeah.
Lexi Hall's situation is actually more concerning if you know the history. She dealt with hamstring issues multiple times last season. Hamstring injuries are notoriously tricky because they tend to linger and recur if you don't let them fully heal. So the fact that Hall is dealing with tightness in that same area before the season even starts is worth monitoring. But the Fever's approach of holding her out of a preseason game is absolutely the right call. Hamstrings don't respond well to being rushed. You let them heal completely, or you're dealing with a problem all season long.
I'm not drinking John's autograph. That's what I want. Brandon, yes? Can I have your autograph? Can I have your autograph? No, yours. Do you even know who you are? No, this is just the... I'm getting one and only just the... So you guys will get her jersey number, number 13. She won't disappoint you. It's amazing. Beautiful. Girl, please!
Now here's what makes this entire situation particularly frustrating for the organization. They're actually doing the right thing from a medical and player management standpoint. Being cautious in preseason, not risking players in meaningless exhibitions, following proper return-to-play protocols for Ty Harris, managing Lexi Hall's hamstring carefully. These are all smart, professional decisions. But because they completely destroyed their credibility last season with how they handled the Caitlin Clark situation, nobody trusts them. They created this problem themselves. The Fever's communication strategy last season was a masterclass in how not to manage fan expectations. Every week it was the same story. Caitlin's ankle is improving, she's day-to-day, we'll see how she feels. Meanwhile, anyone watching could see she was clearly compromised, playing through significant pain, and the injury was affecting her performance. The disconnect between what the team was saying and what everyone could see with their own eyes eroded all trust. And here's the thing about trust in professional sports. You don't get it back easily. It takes years of consistent, transparent communication to rebuild what they destroyed in one season. So when they drop an injury report without context, without proactive explanation, without any acknowledgement of how this might be received given last year's disaster, they're showing they haven't learned anything. Think about how simple this would have been to handle correctly. Stephanie White addresses it in the press conference yesterday. She says, "Look, we've got a long season ahead of us, and our priority is making sure everyone is at 100% when it matters. Aaliyah Boston is dealing with some minor soreness, nothing serious, but we're not going to risk anything in a preseason game. Lexi Hall has some hamstring tightness, and anyone who knows hamstring injuries knows you don't mess around with those. Ty Harris is following a structured return-to-play protocol. Temi is still working through visa issues, which is frustrating but out of our control. That's it. That's all it takes. 30 seconds of honest, straightforward communication, and this entire controversy doesn't exist. Fans would understand. They'd appreciate the cautious approach. They'd feel respected and informed instead of anxious and suspicious. But instead, we get silence, followed by an injury report that triggers immediate panic because of the trauma from last season. And then Chloe Peterson has to do the Fever's job for them, reaching out to sources, getting context, and explaining to fans what the team should have explained themselves. The broader issue here is that the Indiana Fever are sitting on a potential dynasty. They have Caitlin Clark, the biggest star in women's basketball. They have Aaliyah Boston, a generational talent in the paint. They've added pieces, upgraded coaching, and have a legitimate chance to compete for championships. But organizational dysfunction can derail all of that. Poor communication, lack of transparency, broken trust with the fan base. These things matter. Look at what happened in the comments under the injury report. Fans saying they don't believe anything the Fever coaches and staff say about injuries after last year. Fans calling the organization shady. Fans demanding they not be given a second chance. That's not just frustration. That's a fan base that's been burned and is actively hostile toward their own team's front office. And the wild part is, this should be a honeymoon period. New coach, fresh start, optimism about the season. Instead, the very first news cycle is dominated by injury concerns and trust issues because the organization refuses to learn from its mistakes. So where does this leave us heading into the actual season? Well, if these really are just precautionary measures and everyone is healthy for opening night, then the Fever dodged a bullet. But the damage to their relationship with fans continues to compound. Every vague injury report, every lack of transparency, every time they make fans feel like they're being misled, it adds to the resentment. The solution is simple, but requires humility. Acknowledge what happened last season. Admit the communication was poor. Commit to doing better. And then actually follow through with consistent, honest updates about player health. Treat your fan base like adults who can handle the truth instead of children who need to be protected from bad news. Because right now, Indiana Fever fans are watching their team with one eye on the court and one eye on the injury report, waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's no way to build a championship culture. And it's definitely no way to maintain the momentum that Caitlin Clark has brought to this franchise. The question for the Fever front office is whether they're going to learn from this latest communication failure or continue the same pattern that's already cost them so much credibility. Based on how they handled this preseason injury report, the early returns aren't encouraging. But there's still time to change course before this becomes a season-long issue that overshadows what should be an exciting year for Indiana basketball.